Why should we be so concerned about young kids' literacy? And I would say the reason is because we're so concerned about how all of our children are doing and how well our kids are doing all the way through school. And certainly giving kids a good start is pretty important. One of the things that we know from the research is that early literacy affects later literacy and later school achievement. We've got a number of such studies showing that. A really interesting study that just came out last year in the UK, where they started with a group of children in the 1950s. And they've been tracking this group of children ever since. No, they're not children anymore, of course, but they've been following them since the 1950s. And one of the things that they got interested in a few years back was now these kids were 42 years old, and they wanted to know, they were finding big differences in these kids' incomes. And they wanted to know why they had such big differences in their economic health and well-being. And certainly one of the notions is that we sort of hand our advantages on to our children. So perhaps it was just that, if you're middle class, you're going to stay middle class and so on. So they controlled for the differences in the parents, in the households that these kids grew up in. And there were still even with that, there were still big differences in economic attainment. And so they were trying to figure out, how could you predict that? How would you be able to explain that and separate that out? And one of the things they did is they went back and looked at the children's reading scores and math scores when they were 7 years old. So you're talking second graders, right? Not that much beyond this preschool period. And in fact, that predicted a huge amount of the variation in the economic well-being of these folks. And you go, that's at 7? Are you kidding? It matters that much? And in fact, yes, indeed, it does. In fact, the study that I just became aware of, substantial language differences evident by the age of 2 for poverty kids. And when I say substantial, if we talk a 6-month difference for 18-year-olds, big deal. You kind of expect that. But a 6-month difference in language attainment for 2-year-olds, that's like a quarter of their life, guys. That's a fairly substantial difference. So these differences that we're seeing in language and literacy start early and they last for a very long time. I assume that everybody has seen these statistics, the Hart and Risley data, that people have gotten used to seeing that, the 30 million words difference. That is that the children in the welfare families were hearing many fewer words from adults than the kids in the working class families, and many fewer than in the professional families. But when you actually see it not in the environment, but in the kids' actual attainment and the differences that they're showing when they're so young is just incredible. Obviously, we have the NAEP data and so on, and we could go on. The fact is, literacy plays a very important part of our civic lives, our social lives, our economic lives, in our health care and wellness, and in a number of other issues that we care about. And the patterns that are set early matter for a very long time in kids' lives. So it isn't foolish that we're here thinking about these issues and pursuing these issues. And certainly a potential way of trying to improve or increase our kids' literacy attainment is to look for opportunities that would allow us to give them more instruction. I mean, there are only a few things you can do to improve educational achievement when it gets down to education. And clearly there are things that we can do in the healthcare realm, and there are things we can do in the economic realm and so on that might make a difference in education. But when it falls to us teachers, we educators, we can increase the amount of teaching we give kids. We can teach them different things that maybe we're omitting now that are essential. Maybe we can enhance the quality of how well we deliver things to kids so that we could maybe deliver more in the same time. That's about all we can do. And so the notion of let's find some additional spaces where we could give kids additional instruction or opportunities to learn and experiences that can support their later success makes great sense. And so turning to these early years is pretty sensible.